Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to go over how I built my interactable foliage kind of logic so you can get an idea about how to build it yourself. It's not going to be a tutorial, rather like a walkthrough of how I do it, and maybe gets you some inspiration of how you do it yourself. Obviously it's going to depend on your inventory script or your resource farming, etc, but I show you how I do it. And I'm not talking about the trees or these large mineable rocks. I'm specifically talking about small stones, small sticks, I don't know, herbs, mushrooms, fibers, feathers, anything that's small item that's scattered throughout the forest, because I have a really optimized way of dealing with these. Now, of course, with the mineable rocks and the cuttable trees is different, because I can just do a simple line trace like this. I hit the static mesh, now the static mesh is swapped over there at the distance, and now this is an actor and I can chop it down or do whatever I want to do with it. That's fine, it's a simple line trace. Same for the rocks, I can just stand here, I can switch the rock, as you can see the rock is moved over there as a static mesh, and now I can mine out this. I'm specifically talking about small items like these rocks, these small feathers, headers, mushrooms, etc. throughout the forest, because here it's not optimal if you do line trace, because what you're going to do, you're going to stand there and try to, hit it with a left click and then you pick up. It's not option. So how I do it here is relatively simple, and let me just refresh it. Actually, let's do it like this. So what I do here is, if you see my actor count, I have 20 actors. It's 20 actor. If I walk through it, it's gonna highlight the underlying static mesh, but I still have 20 actor. I go here, now it's 2 highlighted, but I still have 20 actors, not 21 or 22. If I go out, still 20 actor. I can run through the whole forest, as you can see on my trail. I'm highlighting stuff, but my actor count is still 20. It's never moved anywhere, because all I do here is I highlight the underlying static mesh with a simple color emission or emission color with a set custom data value. And after that, obviously, you need to deal with how to pick up the item and add it to your inventory, etc., which you can swap it to a live actor, like a resourceable actor, and then you can resource. If you not touch it, it respawns, etc. But I also found a way to that, and I will show you how I do it exactly. So how I highlight it is that basically when you look at your instanced foliage actor, in your instance foliage actor you have components. So you have your FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. This is corresponding to a Procedural Foliage Spawner, so PFS, which in my case I use Procedural Foliage Spawner instead of Procedural Content Generation. There's the two big things like PFS versus PCG. If you use PCG, then you're not going to have FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. In that case, you're going to have InstancedStaticMeshComponent. So this is the kind of two component, FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent or InstancedStaticMeshComponent. Either way, if you use PCG or PFS, both going to be compatible with this one. Now how I do it is I create a child of this, either a child of the InstancedStaticMeshComponent or child of the FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. And you can do that by going to the blueprint class and you go to all classes and you do instanced, or in my case it's a FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. So FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, which is a child of a hierarchical InstancedStaticMeshComponent, which is a child of the InstancedStaticMeshComponent. So I select this one, FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, I do like this, and I call this one, I don't know, swap foliage, or you call it whatever you want to do. You open it, and this is going to be, it says parent class, FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. Now why this is great is because you can write blueprint here. You can declare variables, you can do functions, you can do all kinds of stuff inside here. It's a component class. And why I think this is great is, let me show you exactly why I think this is great. I created this one right here, which is, as you can see, the same thing. It's I call this swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, which is child of the FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent. And here, every time I trigger this with some kind of communication, which is, in my case, it's a simple blueprint interface. So let's say I trigger this with a blueprint interface from the BP third person character. So let's say my BP third person character, let me just go to where it is here. Let's say I stand next to a rock and I press the E key. Then I'm going to do a sphere trace by channel and I'm going to hit something, which is going to be a rock. The hit result I break. I get a primitive component, which is the hit component, and I have a hit item, which is kind of, think about the component, this one, and the item is the indexing. So if I go to the open world, the instance, component is these ones, or this, or this. Each of these is a component. If you have, let's say, multiple different resources, so for example, swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, C_0 gonna be my stones, C_1 gonna be my sticks, T_2 gonna be my mushrooms. You get the idea. And inside, when you go to instances, so I type instances, where is it? Instances. So in instances, you have an array of indexes. So basically, you have right now 96 of this particular small stones scattered throughout this small forest. The indexes as corresponding to here in the BP third person when you break the hit result of the sphere trace, or in your case could be a begin overlap, event overlap, you get the idea. The hit result is the hit item. This is the index, so it's the index of the instances. And the hit component, the blue one, is the component itself right here. So if I do a component mushroom index 75, that corresponds to, let's say, this here, which is my mushroom, with the index 75, which is down here, index, I don't know, 75, right here, 75. And I know exactly that this is the mushroom right here inside here. That's how you identify inside instances. Now, what I do in my BP third person is that I do this hit component. I do a blueprint interface. So I created a so-called swap foliage interact. I call it an interface, a BP_foliage swap interface, and there where I communicate in between like foliage stuff, either between BP third person character and the swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, or even other blueprints, etc. Doesn't matter. Here in I created a function called swap foliage interact, and inside I'm expecting a hit item as an integer to be sent. So I'm expecting the instance index to be sent over. Now I use this in my BP third person. You always, by the way, need to add the interface into your interfaces right here, not in the message sending, but the message receiving end. So if you're just sending messages from here and from the BP third person, you can just add it in the component. All you do is go to class settings, you go to interfaces, implemented interfaces, and here you click add, and then you add the interface, and that will be opening here the interface, and then you just click on the swap foliage interact like here, and you're just literally going to drop it into your canvas, into your event graph. And then once you do that, in the other part, which is the BP here, I do right here, I do swap foliage interact. I take out the context sensitive because I don't need it, and I need the message one right here. And I can use this one to send messages here. Now with this message, I need a target. I'm targeting the primitive hit component from here because that's already an object reference, even though it's a primitive one. I can use it as a target, and I can use the hit item, so the instance index, as the variable that I want to send over. Once I send over the message, in the other part right here, I'm receiving this message. I do not need to send the hit component right here, because you're literally sending into that component the message. So in the other end, all you do is a self node. That's it, self. This self is the same that you would here, you would cast it to cast swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent or cast InstancedStaticMeshComponent like this. You would get the object reference, you would get static mesh from here. Why I don't see get static mesh? Wait, then from here, get static mesh. Yeah. So if you would get the swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, get the target static mesh, this is the same thing that you would just do a self here, and you can get from there the target mesh. Now either way, so what I do, I send a message. I have the hit item. This knows that this exact instance I have to deal with. Or what is the object is simple, you do a self, because you're already inside there, so you don't cast it to your own self. That would be foolish. You just do a self, which already has the object reference, and this self is the same that the, that the hit component is. Because they use the hit component as a target, so you're already targeting inside here yourself. So basically I have the object ref and I have the hit item. So meaning in the instance, I know exactly what component I'm targeting and I know what instance I'm targeting. And then I can do any logic I want here. So for example, in my case, I add the item to my inventory, which is gonna be right here. I'm adding it with the event triad item to the inventory. And once I do that, I hide the pickup resource. And that's also simple, the hide pickup resource. I use custom data value where I can make the item visible or invisible using a set custom data index, whatever index I want to. Let's say in my case, the index 0 is invisibility mask. The 1 is a highlight mask. The 2 is a, I don't know, sharpness mask, whatever I want to do that. In my case, I use 0 and 1. 0 is my invisibility mask and 1 is my highlighting mask. So let's say I use custom data index 0, and in custom data index 0, the value determines if it's visible or not. In my case, 1 is visible, 0 is invisible. That's why when I load it into the map, you've seen that there is no rocks here. So there is no rock throughout here. But when I load into the game, like this, then you can see the rocks are here. If I go out exactly from here, you see that there's no rocks. Why? Because the rocks are all starting off with a default value of 0, so they're invisible. But when I start the game, so let's say event begin play on the component, meaning whenever the server loaded on and all the foliage is initiated with the component, I loop through the component and every single item I make visible with a set custom data value 1. And from there, every rock is visible. And whenever you want to harvest a rock here, I add it to the inventory and then I hide the underlying static mesh. So I set the instance index saying, hey, I want to set in the instance right here, number 7, so which is this rock right here, whatever. I want to set it to invisible with a set custom data value 0. The target should be a particular component, in this case is self, because you can't reference anywhere else. You are already, like I said earlier, you're already in yourself, so you don't need an object ref. You can just say self, the instance, whatever in the index is, and I know exactly that I'm talking about this component, I'm talking about this index, and I'm making it invisible. And then you have to deal with the delay. You can't just say like this delay, like a respawn delay of, I don't know, 60 seconds, because this is not parallel execution, meaning that I pick up a rock from here, 60-second delay, I move here quickly, pick up another one, it's going to override the previous one because it's a single line execution, so the delay node is not working. You can do that by adding your own delay node. In this case, I'm spawning a BP actor called BP swap foliage delay, but it's a really optimized blueprint. All it does is on event begin play, it has a certain delay, and then it sets the custom data value back to visible. So you've seen it here in the bottom that I hide the resource with a set custom data value 0 on a particular index, and then what I do is here I set the custom data value back into 1.0 on a particular index, and because here you have to reference the object reference, swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent object reference, obviously you need to refer to, because otherwise you would not be able to, but it's easy because all you do here is that here you expose it to spawn, and whenever you spawned this, you're passing the variable from there, and wherever I spawned it exactly here. So here I'm self-referencing into the spawning itself with the self node, like I said earlier. So that's kind of the logic that I go through, and that means whenever the BP third person character says, okay, let's pick up this item, and then I just simply do an interface communication, send the hit item along with it, And then inside, I'm adding the items to my inventory. I'm hiding the resource. I'm spawning a BP actor for delay, passing myself as an object ref and the index that I received in the first place. And then in there, I do a delay and I'm set back into the custom data value that previously I set to 0. So in here, in there I made the, where is it? Let's open it back up. Not this one. Here. So in previously I hided the resource, set custom data value 0, and now I made set custom data value 1. Basically that's all it takes. And if you want to see how it works, is a simple per instance custom data value is an invisibility mask that goes into a vertex interpolator, which goes into your opacity mask. That's it, nothing complicated. If this value is 0, it's invisible. Open it. Okay, so it's invisible. If it's value 1, then it's visible. That's all it takes. It's super primitive, but it works. It makes the material completely invisible or visible. In that case, what means is when I pick up an item in the word map, like this, I go there, I pick it up, press E. You see there was the trigger, I picked it up, but the item is still there, the static mesh. It's just invisible. And now it's not visible. So I go there, I pick it up, it's still there, you can see the red dot is still there, it's just invisible, and now it's visible. Because I don't have any collision, I can walk through it. Obviously, you can only use this with stuff that doesn't have collision, because otherwise you would still have the collision. Even if I pick up, it would be a collision and I would step on the rock here when it's nothing there. So you can only use it for invisible stuff. That's why I said this is for small stuff. You don't need a collision for a header, for a mushroom, for some small stuff on the ground. You don't need collision, and you can use this literally there. And that's kind of how I do it. Where is it? Let's open it again. Not the interface, but this one. So it's super simple. From the BP third person character with the interface, I trigger the child of the FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent right here. I'm expecting an instance index to be sent. Object I don't need because I'm already inside the object itself. I'm adding items to my inventory. I'm hiding the resources with a set custom data value. And then I spawn a delay node, and my delay node, where is my delay node? My delay node is going to be, let's do it here. My delay node is expecting the index and an object, and then it says a delay and sets back the custom value to be visible again. And from there I go even back from BP third person, but you don't need to have that. It's just I keep track of whatever is swapped in an array, so I need that. But that's kind of primitively how I do it, and you can write full-blown blueprint inside a component. All thing you need to keep in mind is not parallel. So if you trigger this, and you have an execution time of 5 seconds here, and you pick up another resource meter forward, it's gonna overwritten. So whatever you write here, you have to write stuff that's super rapid execution, 0.1 second, I don't know. So somebody picks up the item, boom, inventory, boom, hide the instance, boom, get a delay node or an actor, spawn, that's it. You cannot have anything that takes seconds here to execute because otherwise it's not working. Yeah, so that's kind of the first part, how I go about it. And obviously this part right here, the add pickup items, which add items to the inventory, it's going to be up to you how you build it into your own inventory system. Alright, so for the add item to inventory, obviously going to be dependent on your own inventory system, because adding item to your inventory is always specific to your own project. But I will explain how I do it using the Hyper Games by Hyper inventory pack, and then you maybe have an idea or like inspiration of how you should do it or could do it. Now, how I do it is that as most of the inventory systems, I do have a relatively large data table where I have a bunch of items, in this case 367 items, and inside I also, even more complicated, have structs. So I have 8 structs here. Each of these is a struct, which is a general attributes, crafting, stackable, durability, consumable, sellable, questable, level attributes, recipes, blah blah blah. So I have 8 structs inside the data table. So in the generic attributes, I do have a so-called mesh. So inside the stone, for example, it corresponds to a stone static mesh. Now, why this is great is because this is exactly like this, because if the stone would be like a BP actor open in the wild where you can pick it up, so I can even demonstrate what I mean under that, is that, for example, in my, I don't know, mineable resources, when I destroy a rock, like this, it's gonna spawn these particular rocks right here, you see? These are static meshes, and it's a pickup ore. So I pick it up, and now it's in my inventory, and that's why the inventory itself has to have a static mesh, meaning that if I build an actor out of it in the open world where you go there and pick it up, it has to be some mesh in there, which triggers the actual adding into your inventory. And I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, so I have a mesh for each of these in the inventory. So the stick gonna have this one, the stone gonna have this one. I also have meshes in my open world, meaning that I go into the instance here and I find, let's say, the small stones that are scattered throughout. This here is the same mesh. So what if I matching every single component in my instance, saying that C_0 is a stones, C_1 is sticks, C_2 is mushrooms, etc. And obviously each of them gonna have indexes, so 70 rocks, 60 mushrooms, 50, I don't know, sticks, you get the idea. And I was like, what if I say, look up every single component, so look up my mushroom component, look at my stick component, my stone component, get out the static mesh from it. If you have 25 components, that means 25 type of pickable resources in the open world in the forest. Then I have 25 underlying static meshes. Doesn't matter if it's 70 or 80 instances, they're all using the same static mesh. And I can say, in my DT table, from the 366 items here, 25 of them are open world items which I can pick up naturally. So I should make some kind of pairing and store it, so I can gather it later on. Because when I walk through my forest and I see a nice shiny mushroom, and I go there and I pick it up, I do not want to real-time look at the DT tables and be like, okay, find this mushroom, get out the actual corresponding item and give it to your inventory. Because as we discussed earlier, we are doing everything inside this child of the FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, so we're not spawning actors, actually. We're doing the whole thing here, so I need a reference into the DT items here. I can't just spawn an actor. So what I was thinking about, how to initialize this in a resource-friendly way real time. And how I do it, whenever the script starts, whenever the server starts, meaning that whenever the particular components here loaded up on server start, I'm going to initialize this with an event plugin play. And because I either way do this, which is, as you can see, none of the stones here are visible, but when I start my game, you're gonna see that the stones are visible. So right here, all the stones are visible, but if I go out, stones are not visible, because whenever it starts, they all have the custom data value 0, and I loop through every single one of them and I set it to 1. So I either way do this. I was like, why not initialize the inventory items also? So I continue, once this is completed, I continue the initialization, and what I do, I say get components by class, and the component class is FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent, so the class that we are working inside right here. And the target is the return value of self. So get owner, like this, get owner, actor component, I think. No, it's an actor. It's a get owner component here. Yeah, actor component, like this. And then I return the value right here. And what does this do is that you're going to have an array which is going to say this one, that's going to be the first item of the array, object reference of this swap foliage instance static mesh component object ref C_0, which is a stone, the C_1, which is a stick, the C_2. So like, for example, here 1 and 2, these are the first two items in the array. This is the third item of the array, 4. So basically what you see in here, these nodes are returning an array of every single component that your instanced foliage actor can have. So this instant foliage actor, every single component of that type, so only the swap foliage instance static mesh component, not the other ones, going to, because that's what we're working inside, going to return, and I do a for each loop, and I say each of the array element, which are going to be a swap foliage instance static mesh component object reference. Again, this is not a static mesh reference, is a component object reference. So for a loop body, what I do is that each of the array element of this array, so one array element is this, another one is this, another one is this, etc. For each of those, get static mesh. So what I do is get static mesh like this. I get the static mesh. So now I have it that this component static mesh is this component static mesh is this. You get the idea. And what I do is that I say in a branch, conditional branch, contains, and I say if the pickup mesh word array, which is, where is it? Pickup mesh word array right here, array of static mesh object references is a simple array of static meshes, object references. So how you do it is variables, whatever, and you do a static mesh like this. You do an object reference, and here you set it to an array. So that's gonna be a array of static meshes, object references. Static mesh type. Wait, is it the same one? Yeah, it's the same one. Current static mesh type. Yeah, so that's kind of how you do it. Object reference. Yeah, it's exactly the same. So I have this array of static mesh object references, and I say in the conditional branch on the loop body, so each of the array that it has, so we had an array, meaning the array gonna have component one as the first item of the array, second item, third item. So for each of these, find the appropriate static mesh, meaning that inside here is a stone, inside here is a stick, inside here, you get the idea, mushroom, whatever. So for each of these static meshes, find it inside the array of static meshes. If it contains, then do nothing. If it doesn't contain, add it. And that means it's gonna loop through your forest, and it's gonna create an array of static mesh object references, and it's gonna say, this is the first static mesh in your forest, second is mushroom, third is like each of these, like let's say this is all my forest contains in terms of like interactable foliage, each of the static meshes are gonna be counted here. And once it's done, completed, I have a full array of them. So what I do is the second part, this is the inventory type shit. So what I do here is that I say for each of these, like I have this array of static mesh object references. What I do on the array element now is a simple static mesh, meaning that one element is now this. Okay, so in the previous one right here, an array element here was this, but here the array element is now, we are inside, so it's this one here. And what we do is in the loop body, I get data table row names of the DT items, and this returns 367 row names. And for each of the rows, I do a for each loop inside the for each loop, so looping the loop. And what I do is for each of this array of names, which is going to be an array of the row name, so 367 names, it's going to do a get data table row DT items. And it needs a row name, but now you have an array of 367 row names, data table row names. And now I'm gonna loop through every single database row entry. So every single DT items database row here, I'm gonna loop through every single one of them. I'm gonna break struct item. This one I return all the basic stuff here. So in my case, this is what are you going to respond? Generic attributes, crafting, stackable, durability, blah, 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 you get the idea. And then I break the generic, because that's what I need inside the generic. I have a static mesh, so I break the generic, and I have the static mesh soft object reference. Now this is not a full-blown object reference, it's not loaded yet, it's a soft object, but you can still compare it with a normal static mesh. So what I do is I do branch, conditional check, equal, node, and I make it so the array element static mesh object reference that we get from this word array, is it matching with this particular mesh? And what this means? It means that, simple terms, is this matching with this right here? If it is matching, then true, this is matching, I make a map. Now my map is here, mesh to item map. This is a map of static mesh object references to struct inventory slot item times. And how you make a map? is you simply create this particular map, and I add into this map here with the add node, I add the key, which in our case the key is the particular array element we're comparing here, and the value itself is going to be the inventory item. Now, of course, I also need a little bit tricky here, because when I get the row name out from here, we break it to get the mesh, that's good, but in a separate line, I also do make data table row handle, row name, I get the row handle out as a row handle structure, as an item, and I get out a make struct inventory slot item, and that's gonna return to me a struct inventory slot item structure. And this is this exact blue line, the outcome, the struct inventory slot item structure, is what my script expects me to add in the try add item to inventory automatically, because this node, as you can see, expects a struct inventory slot item structure, which needs it to have in order to determine what inventory item should be added into your inventory. Now, of course, this contains also how many of that, etc. If you don't define how many, then it's automatically one. But your inventory could be different. All that it matters is that you have to have a mapping which contains a map of static mesh object references to your particular format that your inventory add item node expects. So you can say this particular static mesh, which in our case here in the component, this static mesh that you are walking over it, if you're adding it into your inventory, then I need this item, number 366. That's exactly what I need to have. So you have to have the mapping. The mapping key always should be the object reference, the static mesh, and the value should be always the inventory type or whatever. This might be a different variable for you in your inventory system. In my case, this is a so-called struct inventory slot item structure, and this is where I need to actually spawn an item. Now, what this does is that it says this two part, this and this, it says you have, I don't know, 3 components. Let's imagine that this is swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent and this is 2. You have 3 components. This have a stone, this have a stick, this has a mushroom. So you have 3 total static meshes. Now look into the data tables. This is your stone item, this is your stick item, this is your, I don't know, mushroom item. So you have 3 static mesh, 3 item. And now you make a mapping at the end, 3 static mesh to 3 items. And why this is great? Because you do this whenever the server starts. So even if it's a 2-second stuff, I mean, it's not realistically, but still, you do this whenever the server loads and the actual components are initialized. And then now you have a simple mapping. And looking up a value in a mapping from a key in Unreal Engine is super lightweight. So whenever I say add pickup items, I expect a target mesh to be sent. And why? It's because I gather out from the self, meaning the object reference we are in, swap FoliageInstancedStaticMeshComponent object reference. I'm getting out the static mesh from it, and I send it as a target mesh. And I also said the hit item. So whenever I do the add pickup, actually I don't even need this. Yeah, I'm going to remove it because I don't need the hit item anymore. I used to have it, but I don't need it anymore. Let me just recompile it. Yeah, let's actually refresh this. Yeah, I don't need to send that. So the only thing that I need to send into my add pickup items event is the self get static mesh, and it says that here in the BP third person character we interacted with the sphere with a stone, and we trigger this interact channel. Inside the interact channel we send the hit item, whatever, and inside the add pickup items I'm sending the static mesh. So we interacted with a SM or stone, and that means here whenever you add the inventory to your item, I take the map that we previously created, this so-called mesh to item map, which is a static mesh types 2 struct inventory slot item types. Again, in your case, this value could be something different format. And I say, look up my mapping, find the target mesh, which is our case this SM or stone, and find the underlying value, which is going to be the inventory item from here that I should be adding to my inventory, and connect that to here, which is inventory item to be added. And then it's going to be spawning it. Now, of course, target is get inventory manager, controller, get player controller. You got the idea. Your inventory might be different, but each inventory system is going to have some kind of event that globally can be triggered from anywhere, which adds an inventory into your, add an item into your inventory. That globally triggerable function or event also going to have either way some kind of determination of what inventory item you should add into your inventory. And because I made previously a mapping on server load, which gonna say, okay, SM underscore mushroom static mesh on the open world gonna have this item. Small rocks in the instances are going to have this item. This is going to have this item. So I made a full mapping with these pairs, and then in real time, looking up a mapping with a key of a static mesh, finding an inventory item to add, super lightweight. So that's how I kind of add it to my inventory. And yeah, creating a mapping is you go to variables, and let's say you do mesh map, whatever you kind of call this one, and then you have to have a the first is static mesh object ref, so static mesh like this, static mesh object ref, and then you do here and you go add like this, like you're converting it to a mapping, and the right side of the mapping is gonna be a the inventory item type that you need. So in my case is what's this? Struct inventory slot item type. So struct inventory slot item right here. And then now this one is a map of static mesh types to struct inventory slot item types. And that's where that's where I need to, this is my mapping that I'm adding this value based on this key, okay? And then later on I'm retrieving this same mapping right here wherever I need to add it to my inventory, and I say, okay, get this, find in this mapping, find the static mesh as a key, meaning that, hey, what item in the inventory passing to this static mesh that I'm standing over, and it says, okay, you need to add this, and then I add it. And in real time, how it looks like is that I go over a particular stone, like this, it's highlighted, but not because of that, this is highlighted, like explained highlight, but I do the sphere channel, which is like this, I get this kind of sphere channel. Now if it interacts inside with the mesh, as you can see, item added, one stone in inventory, one stone in inventory, one stone in inventory, and now they're spanning it back, and back. So, and now I have it in the inventory, and I can drop all of it from the inventory. It's gonna be like this. And now it's this is an actor, but this is still a static mesh, and whenever I pick it up, it's still a static mesh underlying, it's just invisible. Okay, it's increased my actor count because I do a delay node, right? So I do a simple delay node, and in the delay mode we setting it back. But if I would not do a delay mode, for now we can just show it what it would be. What is it? Here, if I disconnect this one right here, and I go into the play mode, look at my actor count, 20, okay, you see, 20 actors. I go here, I pick up this, it's gonna be invisible, it's gonna add into my inventory, but the actor count is still gonna be 20, look. Yeah, there you go, it's in my inventory, but it's still 20. I pick this up, still 20. I pick this up, still 20. I pick this up, still 20. You never spawned any actors, but at the same time the item is in your inventory. You made blueprints, you did relatively complex stuff, but you all did it inside the component class and not with an actor. And that's why it's a resource-friendly, ultra-micro optimized way of dealing with some static meshes. It means that you can literally pick up static meshes in the open world, because you can build your pickup logic inside here. I mean, I think this is great. I don't know, maybe you don't like it, maybe you get inspiration from it. I hope you do. And that's it for this video. Take care.